As far as Polynians go, there have been a few occasions in which I've been incredibly excited for new releases. Today is one such day. Because today, we are going to open and review Polynian number 19, Lily. That's right, my friends. It is finally time to get into this deliciously thick, foxy shrine maiden? Yeah, this one was originally shown off as a drawing from what I can remember, and from there they of course updated it by showing shots of the prototype, and then later shots of the actual painted figure. And here we are today. We finally have her in hand, and she's been out for a couple weeks at this point. But late or not, I am happy to finally have her. My shipment for March took quite some time to finally ship, so I was really eager to get it, mainly for the fact that she was going to be in the shipment. But here we are, in the middle of April, and we have her, and it is finally time to figure out if this beautiful, foxy lady is worth keeping on a shelf, or if they've reverted back to the pandemic level of production that made Kelly come out so badly. But let's not jinx it. Let's just open this thing and have some fun. First off, we have some handling instructions, of which are included with every Polynian, but since we know plenty about the brand, we're gonna toss this aside. And Lily comes in not one, but 2 blisters. One with accessories, and of course one with the figure. And I've gotta say, once in hand, this is stunning. Oh my god, she's stinky. Listen, obviously I have a fascination for these figures, and I do love their design just inherently, but this one, man, once you get it in hand, this is seriously a contender for figure of the year for me. Oh, look at that! What's really captivating is just how well they were able to pull off this color scheme. That pale blue with then that more faded, desaturated navy is just so nice. And of course it all contrasts so well with the ultra pale white skin. I am in love. Now a lot of Polynians go with the cooler color scheme, but this time I think it works better than it has in almost the entire line of figures. The little bits of accent color are so scarce, but so well placed, that I need to force myself to stop gushing over this right now. And finally, we got some flexible plastic for the hair. I swear, this thing is doing everything I want it to do. And not for nothing, she feels sturdy. Like, the big problem I had with Reimu, obviously enough, she's borrowing a lot of aesthetic from Reimu, but man, this one, I don't feel any problems with it. These surprisingly feel a lot lighter than they did on the Toho figure. My goodness, they were somehow able to engineer this so well. Okay, I need to calm down. This is already too exciting. Let me get a ruler. So from her feet to the tip of her ear, she is just under 6 inches. It's of course going to be 1/12 scale, but the ears do give her just a little bit of a nudge in height. Now think of the ears as a similar height advantage of wearing a hat like one of the other Polynians. But let me pick her back up, which I will gladly do because she's so solid, she does not fall apart. And let's get into posability. Her head, uninhibited by the tendrils of her hair, can go up and down, and up and down. They can also swivel side to side because it is on the wonderful hinged peg joint that Polynian loves to use for all of the joints. So we're going to have an ability to roll it around as well. And that's going to be similar with every joint here. Her shoulder, in and out. A little tight, but the swivel is helpful as well. Her elbows will allow her arms to go up and down. But obviously, she's got a lot that she's working with here that will cause some limiting to the way it will bend back. And finally, her hand is very tightly in there, but it is indeed on the same type of joint, though I don't think you're gonna get much out of this. It'll do a very slight up and down. You can swivel it, and of course it's swappable, but good luck moving it too much. Now this spectacular chest here is covering up the joint that's at her abdomen, though that will go in and out. The only problem you're going to have is getting her to bend forward because she's thick. And also this apron, which is removable, will also limit how much she can move forward, but that's fine. The legs connected at that massive booty will go in and out as usual and swivel so they can rotate all kinds of ways. Same with the knee, in and out, though this one is tight and it can swivel. Finally, these sandals, I guess? She doesn't have toes. Maybe they're shoes. Either way, awesome gold heel. These can go up and down and swivel as usual, uninhibited by the cuff. Overall, spectacular posability, as we've come to expect from the Polynian brand. And if you want to say one thing about Daibadi, you've got to say that they do not skimp on accessories, except for with Bikini Shamrock. Still, this one has a lot. Like I said earlier, her hands can be pulled off and swapped, and that's a bit of a pain because you're going to have to keep worrying about putting the peg back in, but it is what it is. And her default hands are going to be these closed fists with the thumb at the top of her index finger. So not quite a punching fist, but you could make this work for other things. Now the first two hands that we're going to swap out for is going to be an open hand on the left with her fingers spread wide. On the right side of the screen, we can see her throwing horns if she was a metal fan, or I believe this is an international symbol for love. Either way, you be the judge. Now, the next two hands that we're swapping out for are going to be, on the left side, a gripping hand, which you may know I'm a huge fan of. The gripping hand is incredibly useful for accessories. Having the thumb not connect to the fingers allows for it to stretch a little bit, and you can use accessories from sometimes other kits, which really opens them up for a lot of fun. The right side is a closed fist again, but this time she has her thumb rolled over the front of her knuckles rather than at the top of her index. So it's a bit of a different style. I'd say this is the one you want to use for throwing a punch. But there's one last hand, and I swapped it out, but you might not be able to tell. Though if you're not new here, you should understand that this is, and say it with me now, the locked wrist accessory fist. This, of course, is going to be the fist that has its own joint already inside of the wrist. You can't actually pose this up or down like you can with the other ones, though it is hollowed out so that you can put items in there as well, typically only Polynian accessories. This is useful, though I still favor the gripping hand just a little bit more because of how versatile it is. But still, this is a nice array of hands for her. In total, that's 6 pairs of hands, which is 12 hands in total. But if you're not new here, you'll also know that there's something signature that all Polynians typically have the ability to do. That's when we take off their hair, and then we can remove their faceplates. She kind of looks like a samurai pizza cat now. Oh, then we place the next face on, and we put her hair back on. And as you can see now, she has somewhat of a bashful face. Her mouth is slightly open, and there is a hint of blush in those cheeks. With her eyes slightly narrowed, I'd say she's a bit embarrassed at something. Maybe you're looking a little too hard at her assets. I can't blame you. Okay, you've looked long enough, and maybe you even bumped into her at the shrine, but now she's upset. You can see her eyes are narrowed, brow furrowed, and those teeth are showing in an angry scowl. Hell hath no fury, like a shrine maiden scorned. No, but in all honesty, all three of these expressions are great. And one thing that you might not have noticed when you're really looking at the faceplate here, there is a slight hint of orange at the very edge of what I guess would be the outline of the eye. I guess it's like a red eyeshadow. And I've got to say, it's such a great little detail. I really do love that. It's a shame you can't see her eyebrows because of her bangs, but I do appreciate them at least painting that in. But if you thought we were done, you're crazy because that was only half of the accessories. Okay, so I reattached her embarrassed face because we're about to play a bit of dress up with her. Because surprisingly, this figure has quite a bit of variation to the way that you can apply her clothing. Let me explain. Obviously, she's wearing the Shrine Maiden outfit, whereas in the back, it's just kind of a little thong, and in the front, she has this bit of a skirt. Now, this skirt can be removed with just a simple peg joint. That'll reveal the rest of this adornment. But that's not where it stops. You could decide that, well, maybe she shouldn't wear the skirt in the front, and instead, she should just wear a little bow. And honestly, it doesn't look that lewd to have her wearing just the bow. The underwear do kind of imply something, but still, that's not what we're going to talk about. What we're instead going to talk about is the backside, everybody's favorite side. Can I just say, Robo Booty, this is really poppin'. I know I'm crazy about all their butts, and I know she's literally just an FLL model like Iana or Rosa, but somehow this just makes my monkey brain go ooh, 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 ooh. Anyway, you have the ability to give her foxtail, which is actually really cute. I like the pearlescent white that they used for the tip. It distinguishes it from that pale blue. This is a very nice looking accessory. I would like for it to have been a bit fuller on the sides. It's kind of weird that it's flat, but still, it's a simple peg joint, and it plugs right in at her butt. And that's what that looks like when it's plugged in. Really cute. But I will advise you, be very careful with this area. These are commonly just a little too tight for a simple peg like this. You're going to want to sand this down. I certainly did myself, and it fit in just fine. You could heat it up, but honestly, to avoid potentially gauging that, I would go ahead and sand the peg. The worst thing is when you try to plug something into one of these ports in the back, and it's a little too stiff, and you wind up potentially gauging or even scratching the edges of where it connects. I've done this with a few Polynians where I was trying to plug in the arm base, and I wound up completely botching the joint. So then the socket has this terrible flare to it, and it ain't pretty. But just as well as you could plug in her tail, you could additionally put this little skirt on and then plug that in over it. I personally really like this option. It's flared out just enough to kind of give a little bit of an upskirt angle, but it's tasteful, and the tail looks a lot better somehow coming out of that. But that's not even the last option. She also comes with this massive blue ribbon, which is really cute. It's got a peg joint in the back that connects to the area above her butt, and then you can see there's actually another Polynian joint right here. But what would we use it for? Well, go ahead and take the tail and remove the joint from that, because now you can simply plug this into this, and it fits rather easily, and then you can just plug the ribbon right above her butt. And I think that looks really good too. But the real question is, can you also plug that in over the little skirt? And the answer again is yes. This figure does not stop customizing. It has so many simple clothing accessories, and we're still not done. Oh, and one last piece for the clothing is that this bow at her neck just lifts right off, and you can either do that on or off to really show off the puppies. Yeah, boy. See, now that wasn't so bad, was it? Oh, but now that we're looking her in the eye, I should also mention that these little ears can also be twisted off. So then she doesn't always have to be a fox. But what's really interesting about that is that a lot of the other Polynians do have some form of, I guess, headgear attached. What's fun about that is that though I've seen plenty of people put their own custom cat ears on the Polynian, you can finally put a set of canonical animal ears on your Shamrock and make him a complete e-boy. Thank you, Daibadi.
What does the fox say?
Shut up, Shamrock. And now that we've gone over her faces, her hands, and her clothing, let's get into actual holdable accessories, because she comes with quite a few of those too. The first one comes in the form of a weird socketed accessory, and the way that you'll attach it is by removing one of these discs. There's a tab right here. You can just pick these right off. And just like Reimu, you could go ahead and attach on something new. And there we have it. There's a shield that she gets, which is kind of crazy. This thing looks really good. I love the accents of gold. It really contrasts well with the powder blue in there. Something about this all just looks very important, very powerful. And what's really cool is that she still has her hands both free while equipping this shield. Now, funny enough, the box actually says samurai were famous for not using shields. but that doesn't mean that they were not used at all in ancient Japan, and that this is basically a modernization of the shield. Not quite sure why they're referencing samurai, since she doesn't seem like much of one of those. She's actually referred to as somewhat of a priestess, but we'll get further into that with the next accessory. And my goodness, I saved the best accessory for last, because it is this massive staff. Yeah, this thing is really impressive. From a first look, the gold sticks out so well. I don't know what kind of paint they used here, but it looks amazing. And somehow they were able to make these pieces flexible. These are soft. And of course, they're both movable on this peg joint. But what's really cool is that they made one of them curved more than the other, therefore giving the illusion of some motion, because these are basically strips of paper. Because this thing is a pretty sacred item. Altogether, this is described as a naginata because it's actually multiple weapons combined into this sort of polearm weapon, though the basis is that it is a harae, which is something that allows for the purification of something. If you've ever seen a shrine maiden depicted, they're typically using one of these staffs with these strips of paper, and they'll sort of thrust it at something many times. And in doing so, they can transfer the evil energy out of it and into something else. This is, I believe, related to Shinto. I don't know that much about it, but being as she's supposed to be a shrine maiden, this makes perfect sense because Reimu came with one very similar, albeit a bit smaller. And hilariously, the box says that basically if you mess with her, you will be the prey of this naginata. This was actually kind of challenging to get a decent view of her holding the naginata because that's a massive weapon. And yeah, she may be a shrine maiden, but I wouldn't mess with her. Though that brings me to the topic of her outfit, because this is noted on the box. She's described here as a priestess, basically a type of shaman who has a relationship with God. Now, this clothing is the traditional clothing of a shrine maiden. And for some reason, it is very popular with anime fans. As the box states, these are not my words. And then it says that it's because of the fact that people want to derive some sort of sexual pleasure from something beautiful and pure? I guess it's not wrong. And also, it was evidently her father, a priest, who designed this outfit. But this weapon is not as it appears. While it can be a staff, yes, it can also be an energy musket, as described by the box. And this looks like quite the little pistol. It's not only the staff, because then it's described finally as an energy falchion, which of course is a type of sword. Doesn't quite look like a falchion to me, but either way, I appreciate the effort. But now with this combination, she can dual wield a projectile and a blade weapon all together. This is just ridiculous amounts of accessory. But don't worry, my friends, because I am not complaining in the slightest. This is some of the most fun I've had with a Polynian to date. They've seriously outdone themselves this time. And there's even further ability to customize this that I'm not showing you, because honestly, I'd have to really sit with it and play for a while. So all in all, this package is complete here. Okay then, it's finally time to really consider everything we have here. Ultimately, I'm incredibly satisfied with this release. If you couldn't tell throughout the review, I was having so much fun messing with this. And doing the poses for this in the end was actually not as bad as I thought. The sleeves, while they're a bit big and somewhat cumbersome, have somehow balanced themselves in a way where they're not super heavy and the joints are stable enough to actually hold all of their poses. I thought I'd have to remove her arms for certain things, but in all actuality, everything flowed pretty well. The good about this figure is everything, really. The design is wonderful. Something like a few simple geometric shapes created a great new accessory in her having these fox ears up top, and they're a welcome addition. With or without, she looks really good, and that overall really lends to the creative design of this figure. While she's not only a fox priestess woman, I get some vibes of the fact that she could very well be a kitsune of sorts. And of course, that just scratches my yokai itch. But so much about this design really is perfect. I don't know how, when they add more clothing to the FLL body, they somehow make it sexier, and yet they've done it yet again here. The chest looks amazing with these new adornments on it. The bottom half with those weird sort of frilly underwear and that cute little skirt or bow, whatever you might combine it with, all look so alluring. And all the options you have to change her clothing are really a welcome addition. You could buy this and need no accessories to really have a good time with this kit. And I know she's not a model kit, but the amount of accessories she comes with makes her feel like a proper kit of things. And of course, that butt is just to die for. I seriously don't understand how they continually make me drool over robo cheeks. Another thing that I really love is this color scheme. A lot of Polynians go with a cooler theme versus the warm. I wind up liking the warm far more often, though this is the first time I think a cool color scheme really stuck out in a way that was unique. You can say whatever you want and be wrong about it, but I think all of these colors collide in a way that's very pleasing to the eye. Not to mention, her overall shape and sculpt does allow the eye to look through this in a very interested fashion. You guys know I'm huge on character design, and this is screaming it all the way. The hints of gold somehow look so much better than I've ever seen on another Polynian, and for that I really appreciate whatever paint they used was magical here. And let's face it, we finally got flexible plastic, boys. This is a huge day to celebrate. Her hair and the little tendrils of her staff are both flexible and very welcome. Though, to list some cons, I will say that the same flexible plastic can be a bit finicky at times. I would like the option to potentially even remove her bangs entirely, but beggars can't be choosers. I'm just happy I got that. Additionally, there was a little bit of staining and some sloppier work in some of the production here, but nothing that I would write home about. Her midsection only being operable one way is a bit of a limit in articulation, but we understand that from previous FLL models, so again, it's really nothing to complain about. So then, it is my great pleasure to say that Polynian Lily gets a 10 out of 10. She is perfection. This figure went from originally just being highly anticipated to now being one of my very favorite Polynians. And what's really great about this figure is now that we've seen this done in such spectacular fashion, we can have absolute confidence that if they ever do another Unison figure, that will come out so well done. Because all the problems that they had with Reimu were completely ironed out with this release. Make no mistake, a lot of what's here was reused from Reimu, but Reimu was so poorly made that I don't even like counting her. But let me turn this around on you, the viewer. What do you think about this? Did you get this figure already? Are you going to get her? I can absolutely recommend, because at $60, this is an awesome figure with tons of accessory. Comment below what you thought. Let me know if I'm just too sprung on this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to do so. I constantly release new videos, be they figure reviews, weeaboo news, or me unboxing huge hauls. I do lots of stuff. Like the video if you did indeed enjoy it, and make sure to click something on screen. You'll see another video suggested, as well as my Hobby Link Japan referral, whereas if you use it, I get a little bit of commission and you pay no additional for the figures that you buy. But now that we've gotten and reviewed Lily, it's time to move on. So, thank you so much for watching, have an amazing day, and keep on collecting.